language, expressing ourselves or telling something at scale at its fullest, at its best. Our prominent guest speaker today is Michael Smolens, WhatsApp founder, chairman, CEO, collector of puzzle pieces. Let's start first. Nelson Mandela once said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, you will speak to his head. But if you talk to him in his native language, you speak to his heart. And Mr. Smolens' message is to make us speak to hearts of people, whatever their language may be. Our guest is endowed with profound thoughts about the role of language and culture in the world and the importance of proper translation in global development and peace. So he has a lot to do with translation. Yes, with our work. He therefore devised an innovative means to enable all people of the world, all 7.6 billion people in the world, to have access to all knowledge available. How? In video format, in their native language. I repeat again, in video format and in their native language, just as fun home activities. Easily, as fun home activities, helping people to bridge the language barriers, knowing that only 6% of all people of the world speak English. Only 6%.
As a native language.
Only 6%.
As a
by
native
using the
language.
unique cloud-based video translation management system, which Mr. Smolens devised, people can caption and translate their content faster and with better quality. Mr. Smolens conceived WhatsApp in 2004. That was before YouTube and smartphones. And he launched it in 2007, becoming the first browser-based platform to enable video created in any language. Listen, in any language. No language barriers. To be easily, quickly, and inexpensively available in any other language. No language barriers. And then viewable on any video-enabled device. You can see it on any video-enabled device or platform, including mobile phone, including your smartphone. Arab Translators Association, headed by Mr. Amar Al-Azm, is greatly honored to have Mr. Michael Smolens, who is a serial entrepreneur and SDG enthusiast that holds decades of international experience with developing businesses that impact the world. Mr. Smolens, we are all eyes and ears, eagerly awaiting some of your accounts of expertise, guidelines, and hands-on observations. You are welcome. The phone is with you.
Thank
Mike
you.
is with you now.
Thank you. I will be talking, and I have some slides that I want to use to sort of share things with you. But it's mostly going to be a conversation, and I will be very happy and honored to receive any questions from anyone during the discussion or any time after, because what we're talking about here, I don't think you can have a larger problem to solve in the world to enable all 7.6 billion people to have access to all of the knowledge in their native language. The video form is something that I initially focused on and came up with this idea before YouTube existed and before smartphones existed, because I think most of you know the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if a picture is worth 1,000 words, how many words is a video worth? Because a video has 29.6 frames per second. So the entire way that people meaningfully and intelligently communicate their messages is extremely, extremely difficult. And when you go across cultures and languages, it is exponentially more difficult. Many of you, if not most of you, are married and you have a spouse, and you can certainly count every day how much of what you say is miscommunicated to your spouse, and you are speaking in your native language. So can you imagine when people are communicating in other languages? And that is sort of the big picture idea as to why I started .sub and where it is going right now, which I'll sort of explain to you by sharing a deck. And once again, hopefully this is just the beginning of a conversation. Now, how do I show, do I hit share screen and pull up the deck to show it here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. Slideshow share. Okay, so you can see that?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes,
Clear.
okay, so .sub, and I have a new company that I've started that is called Videos Without Borders. And I have a whole bunch of entities, all without borders, SDGs without borders, other things. It is taken from the company Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. And everything that I am trying to do is to remove language as a barrier to cross-cultural communication. And so that would be removing the borders. Now, let's see here. Your screen, why doesn't, it's supposed to be moving the slide. Okay.
ايوه صوروا يا اخوان اخوات ما تخلوا راح ننشطهم.
Do you, I'm trying, oh, here we go. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. This is what I would call my life mantra. And the kind gentleman that introduced me said that about Nelson Mandela, what his saying is. And every company, organization truly wants to speak to people's hearts, because that is the most deep emotional connection. And so everything that I'm working on is to do that. And .sub enables video, as we said, created in any language to be viewed on any device or platform. And just to, I think most of you, if not all of you, are in the translation business, from what I understand. The global translation market was estimated to be a little more than $53 billion, the global market. And it is estimated that the captioning and subtitling market is about 5 to 7% of this total market. So it's that market is 2.7 to 3.7 billion. It's a very large market, but as you will see, I think that the way that stories are told and people explain things is exponentially more powerful using video storytelling than words. And I just want to have an understanding here so that everybody is aware of this. There are 3 different types of translation in the world, and all of you are very aware of that. Number 1 is AI or machine. Number 2 is the community or crowd. And number 3 is professional. And from what I understand, the Arabic Translator Association is a global network of professional translators who are earning all or some of their living and their income from providing professional translation services. So when you hear about community or crowd translation or AI or machine translation, some of you might feel this is very threatening to your income and to your business because, as many other things, technology really impacts markets. But I think that that is something that, as I will explain, everything can coexist at the same time. And as I'm saying, one is not better or worse than the other, but they're totally different, depending on the budget, depending on how it's used, depending on the time it's available that you need it to be turned around, depending on the accuracy. And this last thing is a very interesting one, the social media or community engagement. We are working, as you will see, on some very large global community translation programs, all based on using our platform. And the people that are doing the translation are passionately engaged with the subject. They really have passion, so they have knowledge, so they are volunteering their time to translate things because there, in many cases, is no money to be paid. So they're volunteering, and mostly those people are social media influencers in their local communities. So as they translate something, and in your case, it might be Arabic, you might be posting on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter what you're doing because of your passion. So there's a huge exponential component to social media engagement when you have community and volunteer translation that you don't have in other methods of translation. Does anybody have any questions or comments up until now? Okay.
Well, very interesting, because this is the first time I hear that there is the translation industry is about $53 billion. My question is, where are Arabs now? This is a big question for Arab translators. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Michael. Sorry for interruption.
Okay, yeah, and those numbers are for the total translation and localization industry globally. And, you know, when we go through this, we'll be, you know, touching on this. Now, English is only spoken by 6% of the people in the world. And I think it's really important, and you'll see some data that I'm presenting after this, that as a native language, every company, organization, community, government, club, network wants to speak to their members, their employees, their investors, their customers' hearts, like Mr. Mandela said. And that's what we do with video. So because so many very large multinational companies that are based in Japan or China or Saudi Arabia or Brazil, many of the people in those countries speak English as a second language or a third language. And as you'll see in one of the slides right after this, English is the largest language when you combine first and second language speakers. But English is only the third largest language as a native speaker. And so because people are trying to communicate in a language that they're not understanding, there is a huge opportunity for misunderstanding and bad communication. And without going into any details, last year, for example, when you're dealing with the prime minister, president of a country, or the secretary of state or senior government officials, when they meet the president or prime minister of another country, many times there are professional interpreters standing next to them, and they're speaking to each other in their native language with an interpreter interpreting. There has been 2 major miscommunications between heads of state because what the interpreter interpreted wasn't what the person intended. At the level of the most expensive, highest paid interpreters in the world that are working for the heads of states and presidents. So translation is a really important thing. I just want to make that point. The other thing I'd like to talk about is there are 4 to 5% of the languages in the world that are spoken and that are called indigenous languages. This particular chart says there's 6,700 languages in the world, and it says that only 3% of the population, speaks the indigenous languages, make up less than 6%, and they speak more than 4,000 languages. And none of the languages on the indigenous languages are written language. They're all oral languages. Over 85% of the languages spoken in the world are not written languages. So, and if you could see on my shirt, I have 2 pins. One that is representing the United Nations SDGs, and the other is a group with indigenous languages, because I think there's so much knowledge embedded in the village elders and leaders in indigenous cultures. And because their language is not written and fewer people are speaking it, we stand a chance of losing all of this knowledge to future generations because there's no way to capture it. And I am crazy enough to be working on programs like Indigenous Talks, and that you will have cameramen going into indigenous tribes and interviewing indigenous tribal leaders to gather their knowledge so people in the world will be able to understand their knowledge. So I just want everybody to be aware there's a huge amount of knowledge in the world, and it's really important to be able to capture it and share it. So that's what the purpose of this slide is. Now, this is the chart that I was talking about, and this is in order of the first or second language spoken. So English is spoken by almost 1.3 billion people, but only 370 million as the first language and 900 as the second language. Mandarin Chinese is 1.1 billion, slightly less, first and second. Hindi is 600 million. It's about equal between first and second. And then you have Spanish, French, and then here we have what they call Standard Arabic. And they show here that's 274 million people, of which all of them are second language speakers and none in first language. So you go through this list. So this is just a list. And then the next slide is the languages in order that are first speakers with at least 10 million speakers. And it's Chinese, Spanish, English, Hindi, Bengali, Portuguese, etc. So this is just giving an idea from a global perspective. What are the size of the languages? These are just official charts. I'm not making them up. I'm just reporting them. And I want to talk about this talk that I'm making is not about .sub. But I just want to share, .sub has a platform that is a browser-based platform that, and we have a network of thousands of professional translators that are all, and the company is all remote. We have no offices anywhere. We're in 9 countries, and no, we're in 20, yeah, and so the point is, we work for large companies like IBM. IBM owns Watson, which is the oldest machine translation engine in the world, but they pay .sub to translate their CEO and executive vice president speeches because it's critically important that they're accurate. Boeing, the airline company, pays, we work with all of their internal and external corporate communication. So when they had 2 of their planes crash several years ago, the senior executives were speaking to the world every day, and they have to make sure that what they are saying is accurate. So we work with large companies, and we work with medium-sized companies and small companies, and we have what we call a video TMS, translation management system. And this is the basic workflow. And then this is the basic translator viewer user interface, because we focus on video. And so the translator would be watching the video on the screen. This is the time codes. These are the captions or the subtitles in the various languages. And they enter this in here, and they have a whole bunch of ways to do this. And we either do this themselves, or we can license our platform to other people to use it, or with a lot of people that are doing social good, we give our platform away for free. And then this is what we call our task grid, where our managers will take a look at the stuff that's going on. And so, but that's why, I mean, I started .sub not to be in the language business, but to create a vehicle that I thought could ultimately impact the world. And what I am about to say, only time will tell whether I should be very proud or stupid, I don't know, is that I have never taken any outside capital. So I own a great majority of the company. I funded it myself. And you might say I don't have a 30-year-old Harvard MBA on my board telling me what I can't do. So I do a lot of things for free. I do a lot of things that don't generate a lot of revenue, but we are focused on impact and helping lots of people. And if one had a company that had its primary goal of making money, I think that that would not give me the opportunity to achieve what I want. So I just sort of, that's really all I'll be talking about .sub. And then what I want to do is talk about other things that we are doing and involved with. And hopefully, as a result of this sort of introduction to your organization, we can figure out how to work together in the future to exponentially empower Arabic speakers, Arabic media, and other media in the world to integrate and partner together. Because I think this is a major, major issue. So if any questions thus far? Okay. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And they have created a very colorful sort of presentation, and they have 17 goals. And this really started in the year 2000 with Kofi Annan, who he had what he called MDGs, Millennium Development Goals. And for 15 years, between 2000 and 2015, he tried to introduce them to the world. And it started, and it wasn't really deeply successful. And then Ban Ki-moon in 2016 increased it to 17 goals. And it's a 15-year period between the year 2016 and the year 2030. And if you can take a look at these goals, and when you see this, no poverty, no hunger, good health, education, gender equality, clean water, affordable clean energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all things that everyone would want to happen. And so there's a British consulting company that's at the bottom of this slide called Business Fights Poverty. It came up with a projection, and I want you to hear this number very clearly. On this, you'll see they projected in writing at the UN in 2018 that between 2018 and 2030, there was a $12 trillion opportunity to have companies, governments, and organizations be involved with implementing the SDGs. If you divide that by 12, that's $1 trillion a year. If you divide by 12 months in a year, that's $80 billion a month. That is an unlimited amount of money that was projected to be spent by companies and governments to support the SDGs. And the SDGs, I don't know if we could have a show of hands, how many of you know about the SDGs? They have very little awareness. So the point I'm making here is very large companies have parts of their budgets that are called CSR, that stands for Corporate Social Responsibility. And when you see television advertising in films and on magazines and in newspapers, and you see large multinational companies, AT&T and IBM and things like this, are sponsoring events, they're spending tens of millions of dollars to have their brand associated with doing good around the world. That's a CSR budget, corporate. And so for many people, there's unlimited money available if you do the right thing. And I will be showing you after this some things that we are doing that I think, I'm living a dream. I think of the 17 SDGs, the 2 SDGs that are most important with the most impact. Number 1, I think, is gender equality. I think in so many, women comprise 50% of the population in the world. And in many countries, they don't have the ability to equally exist. So we're doing a bunch of programs to improve gender equality. And the other one is climate. The world, if the world keeps getting warmer, the world is going to have a problem. So these are things that we're involved in. And then I want to show you some other programs that we are actively involved in. I was honored about 10 months ago to be invited to be a member of the Gandhi King Mandela Initiative that is headquartered at Stanford University, that is actively involved with promoting racial equality in the world. And, you know, you certainly can't find, you know, three just more noble people that have been trying to do good than Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, each of them has flaws like all human beings, but this is a large program that we're involved in. We're involved with another program, and I just saw one of the founders, I think might be in the room, Delano Lewis, whose picture is right here. It's called the Black Experience. They are working to showcase experiences of Black people all over the world to try to reduce and remove racial inequality. And once again, language is a major barrier to this. So this is another kind of program that we are working on. Now, this is something that I think that all of you will find intriguing, interesting, and possibly never thought about this. On the right side of this screen, you'll see it says Lyric Find, one word. This is a 15-year-old for-profit company in Canada, in Toronto, that is the world's leader in having legal rights for music lyric translation. So right now on the web, on any given month, there are about 1 billion translations of music lyrics on the web, and over 99% of them are illegal. So there's two major problems. Number one, the publishers who spent their money to create the songs and hire the artists and distribute it make no money. And the other problem is that most of the translations are done with machine translation. And music is much more difficult to translate than text because music is poetry. And so the quality of the lyric translations that is making money on the web doesn't go back to the publishers. So several years ago, Lyric Find came to us, and we hope to be launching this program this month. It's called the Global Lyric Project. This is what the homepage is going to look like. And what it is that they have the legal rights for translations, and then music fans from all over the world. If you're living in Turkey and you're a Madonna fan, you can volunteer on this page to volunteer to translate Madonna's songs, and then other people will quality control the translation. And then they are going to be distributing the translations made by volunteers who are passionate about those artists, and they are fully legal. So that's a social media project where the volunteer translators are going to be earning what's called social media credibility, and they will be earning points. So Joe Doe might be the leading Turkish translator of rock music. So it's a completely different way to do this with volunteer translation. And this is a project we've been working on for a couple of years. And in this project, There's no paid translation. It's all community translation. So and I don't want you all to feel threatened. This is just the reality. Now, some of you might know about someone named Osho. He is a very well-known, very controversial Indian spiritual mystic. He, at one time in the mid-'80s, he owned 80 Rolls Royces. He has the largest meditation resort in the world in Pune, India, where 3,000 to 5,000 people a day from 120 countries are usually there. And between 1961 and 1990, when he passed away, every night after meditation, he had the brilliance and foresight to videotape, film with the highest quality cameras and cameramen what he was saying to all of the people that were meditating with him that day. And over that period of time, he created 10,000 hours of content. And because his organization has about 100 million followers all over the world, they contacted .sub years ago, and we have an arrangement with them where they are using .sub to have volunteers translate his teaching. And you can see on YouTube the interface when they're translating. Here, you can pick a language. Dutch is via .sub, Italian is via .sub, etc. And then this chart, I think of any chart I'm going to show you, is going to blow you away. Osho has thousands of videos, and this is one page of 20 videos. This is the name. These are all in English. This is the length. The shortest one is about 2 minutes. The longest one is 3 hours. And this is the number of translations that each of these videos has been translated into on .sub. Just to give you an idea. This one, The Spiritual Dimension of Cancer, is in 22 languages. This one, No Dimensions Plaza, is in 15 languages. So this gives you an idea of what is possible. This is a program. We all have our lives very affected by COVID. And there's a very good friend of mine who's an award-winning documentary filmmaker, a Fulbright scholar, that has a nonprofit based in Miami. And he is also the head of the Department of Communication at the University of Miami. And so we've created a program that's called Dreaming Without Borders, because we want to be able to record what people are dreaming about when COVID is over. And this is all done with an app on a smartphone. It has a maximum of 60 seconds. So anyone can record what they dream the world is going to be like, and we're aggregating these dreams. So here is a woman from the United States, and here on the next slide is from Berlin, Alice from Berlin, Germany, Amgad from Cairo, Egypt, Nunyawa from Ahmedabad, India, etc., Cape Town, South Africa. So these are the kinds of things where we've created a tool to have people record their dreams in their native language, and they are having it translated so everyone can know about it. Once again, it's a completely different perspective on this. Now, I'm sure all of you or most of you know about TED, the TED conferences, TED Talks. It's probably the best known lecture series. And TED was founded in 1984 by Richard Saul Wurman, who's a very dear friend. He sold it to Chris Anderson in 2003. And in 2008 and 9, we were in discussions with TED to translate TED Talks. And at that time, nothing was available online. You had to spend $7,500 to go to a TED event and hear people talk. And so they started wanting us to have professionals translate, which we were about to do. And I was talking with them about, why don't you have a volunteer translation? So TED started an open translation program, which right now is in 115 languages. There's 40,000 translators. There's almost 200,000 translations done with TED Talks. And that's something that I started with TED at .sub, just to give you an idea. Now, this is a very important bit of information. It ties everything together. All content, video, and I'm talking about that as opposed to a newspaper article, a magazine article, a book. There's all kinds of content, and video relative to the total size of the market is a very small market relative to the total content media market. But video needs to be made by someone, and it costs to make it. So I'm dividing this. Hollywood movies, I pick a number, $1 million a minute. You know, there's films that cost 200 million. There's films that cost 80 million. So it's very expensive to have the script writers and the cameraman and the lighting man and the editors. So it costs $1 million a minute. Broadcast TV costs between $250,000 and $750,000 a minute. The one that's the best known globally by far is Netflix. Netflix broadcasts in 28 countries, and they make all of their Netflix series available in 28 languages. So some of you might be translating into Arabic for Netflix, but it's very expensive. Agency branded video. If you hire an ad agency, if you're IBM, if you're Porsche, if you're Cadillac, and you have them, you know, Hilton hotels, and you want a 1-minute video to promote your car or your food or your clothing, you spend between $25,000 and $150,000 a minute. And what I call value added content is basically where you have a script, a cameraman, a lighting man, and an editor. And that's at about $2,500 to $5,000 a minute. But on UGC, user-generated content, the content that you saw with Dreaming About COVID, that's either free or maybe $50 to $100 a minute. It's made with a phone. There's no cameraman. There's no lighting. So those people cannot afford professional translation. When you're charging someone $18 or $15 or $12 a minute to translate something, and they're spending $500,000, it's fine. Or if you're spending $5,000, they can't afford it. But more and more content is being created by users. And so I just want you to be aware of this huge dichotomy and discrepancy in the world about the role of language and translation relative. So, but if you say, I'm saying it's a small price per minute and it increases the value of a video exponentially. So if you're wanting to do 5 European languages, for example, it's $50 a minute to charge the someone, $10 per minute per language is 50 million. That's 1 to 2% of the total cost. And someone who's making a film or an advertising or something, that's almost nothing relative. If you're in Europe and you're making it in French, Italian, Spanish, German, and another European language, you're increasing exponentially the size of your market for 1% more cost. So I just want all of you to be really fully aware of the dynamics, because from my understanding of your jobs and your life, many times you're not made aware of all of these aspects. You have people that are going to an LSP, a language server, looking for professional Arabic translation, and someone is coming to you and say, I need to pay you X dollars to translate this. So I just want you to be aware of the overall situation in the marketplace. Now, I just want to give you a few ideas about things that I am doing that are, to me, a dream. I'm living a dream. So there's a company in Jaipur, India, that has 40,000 women working for it in 600 remote Indian villages. All of them are from the lower caste of India. None of them ever had education or jobs. And I think many of you can understand that. And so what we're doing is we are working with their foundation. And 3 weeks ago, we had 25 of these women who had weaving rugs put into their hut, require no electricity, and they have a job weaving. And we've asked them to draw the dream of their life on a piece of fabric. And this is all through, and this is a picture of half of the women in a remote village outside of Jaipur 3 weeks ago. And then look, these are 8 of the things that they drew. Okay, this was in this town in India. These are their dreams. And I found out that half of the women could not even write. So they had to tell the woman who was supervising this what their dreams were, and that woman wrote this. And we have this translated into other languages, and we're involved in helping them move in the direction of achieving their dream. So this is a real program, and this is part of Dreaming Without Borders. 10 years ago in Paris, France, hold on. There's an organization called the 1 Minute Mobile Film Festival. They just finished a festival right now about female empowerment. But when they came to me 10 years ago, it was when the Arab Spring first started in 2011 with the Tunisian vegetable vendor, and their program is they have a 1 minute film shot on a mobile phone with a producer, a director, a script, and they have a competition with judges, and they have an award ceremony in Paris with money for the best film. And the subject of their very first festival was called Yalla, the film festival, as you can see. And all of the films they had were in Arabic on phones, very early in the video on phones. So he didn't know what the films were saying. He had hundreds of films on a phone in Arabic, so the judges couldn't judge them. So he went online, found .sub, and we got involved with him to help translate these films at the Yala Film Festival in Paris. This gives you an idea. This happened 11 years ago. Those are the kinds of things. And we now work with them every year. They have 2 film festivals a year. They have 1,200 films submitted from 80. So it's a major way of sharing media across culture. I have a very good friend who based on the West Coast of the United States that is involved with the oldest Arab film festival in the United States. And this is the information about them. And he's involved in Africa with the Nigerian film festival, Nigerian film industry, which is called Nollywood. And he's using technology to increase literacy in local African countries by adding, it's very detailed, time, text, and bimodal formats to create something like captioning, so young people who are not literate can be listening to a film, watching the words in their native language lit up as they're said, and it's estimated that it increases literacy by about 300%. And as you can see in the bottom here, they're very close to pivoting to Arabic script to make this available in the Arabic world. And this is what it looks like in Hausa, in Africa. So those are the kind of things. This is the last project I want to show you, and this is something I've just very recently gotten involved with. This is a new organization that's headquartered in the UAE. It's called the Libra Project. Those are to the right, those are the 3 founders, and I was asked to be a director. And .sub and Videos Without Border are their media and communication partners. And what they are doing is they have already acquired the rights for 10 renewable energy plants in Thailand and 7 renewable energy plants in Nepal. And they're going to be taking them over, fixing them, running them, and providing renewable energy in an efficient way. And they're going to be distributing 10% of their profits into local communities for clean water, food, health, and education. And their goal is by the end of 2030, they want to provide power to 100 million people in the world that do not have power today. And so these are all things that are at the core of everything that we're doing, that we believe in. They're dealing with different cultures. And so, and they're doing their first fundraise both in the United States and in the UAE. So this is a project that I've just recently gotten involved with, and I'm very excited about it. And this is the last slide. Where I am sitting right now, if I look out my window on the left, I am in a place called Sag Harbor, the Hamptons, outside of New York, and I'm on the water. And I have a flagpole that has 8 cleats on it. It can fly up to 8 flags, including the American flag. The American flag is 5 by 8. The other country flags are 3 by 5. And whenever I have a guest from another country, I always buy a flag from that country and I fly that. And I fly the flags the highest with the people that I've known the longest. So this particular day when I took that picture, I had people from 5 different countries here at the house. And I would say at least 80% of the people that visit the house, when they see this, start crying because they've never experienced the kind of cultural awareness and respect that I feel is critically important. And so that's my last slide to show you at my home, I exhibit awareness and respect for all other cultures by flying a flag from their country. So that's, I think I'm finished with this. So.
Dr. Hussein?
Thank you, sir,
Yes.
for your time, and let us give a chance for all participants to ask you if there is any question by raising their
Thank you,
hand.
Mr. Smolens. This is really a breakthrough. Thank you for your invaluable presentation. Dear colleagues and viewers, Mr. Smolens will be pleased to answer your questions or inquiries. Yes. You're welcome.
You know, it's really very valuable. People, our people on WhatsApp, they are very fascinated with your lecture or your presentation, Mr. Mike. Thank you so much. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. There is Miss Samira want to ask something by raising.
Go ahead, Samira. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Doctor, for this really unusual information. I just want to ask you, in the first slides, you have mentioned that in the words we have 3 types of translation: machine translation, community or crowd, and professional. I just want you to explain more about community and the crowd, if you don't mind. And thank you very much, Doctor.
Well, the community or the crowd are just people who are in a local community who are passionate about us, but like the TED Talks. There's 130,000 people around the world that are volunteering. Should I? You're not hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing
okay.
that.
Okay. No, in other words, so community with the lyric find, music fans. If you're in Saudi Arabia and you want to hear a song, you want to see the lyrics of a song, you could volunteer to translate that into Arabic. Or if you're in Japan, so a community or crowd translation. Like when you see protests on the street with thousands of people marching all over the world, whether it's racial inequality, whatever they're marching about, or gender equality, those people are a community that are passionate about the subject that they're spending their time. So if they could and they were asked, they would likely volunteer their time to translate something into their local language to have that message available. That's what community or crowd.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very much.
Rania.
It's one at a time, please. One at a time, yes.
Ms. Rania, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for this valuable, really valuable conference and session. And I'd like you to share with us the link for the translated TED Talks, because I have searched it on the internet frequently, but I can't find them. Are they subtitled in Arabic?
Well, they're subtitled in many. You just go to TED.com and you go to the TED Talk, and on the bottom of the YouTube player, you press the CC button and you'll see a list of all of the languages it's subtitled in. It's on YouTube. And
okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
And you know, and you go to the TED Open Translation Program. There's a website for that. You can sign up and volunteer, and they have a whole global network to organize that.
Could you please repeat this once more? TED.com?
No, I don't. I think the translation. You just do a Google search for TED Open Translation Program, and that'll probably give you the link.
Okay, thank you
If
very
not,
much.
then if you're not send it in, I can just send it to this group if you want. But
and the already translated ones are on the YouTube. I just have to press the CC and then the link's going to appear, right?
Well, I think that depending on, it could be in certain countries, they might have certain rules. I don't know, but it's been there for 10 years now. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rania. Mr. Ali?
Mr. Ali Idrisi?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Michael, for this very, very interesting talk. I am very happy to see that a lot of work is being done to translate things that might seem inaccessible to empower people. For example, you know, you mentioned minority or indigenous languages, and that's a great thing to do. My question is, maybe I would like to ask you just to tell us a bit how or about the efforts to quality assure the kind of translations that are being done.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
First of all, everything that is going on is organic. There are no rules. And so the quality control is whatever the passion and energy is of the people that are involved with doing the translation. So when we have the program for music lyrics, okay, there's no life or death problems with music lyrics. It's not going, you're not going to have, you know, anger, but they are other volunteers see a song that isn't appropriately translated and they can make a correction, and it's done organically. So if you have, you know, and I know everybody is saying, well, you are a professional translator and you went to translation school and you passed the exams and you're being tested. How do you prevent other people from translating something and having it bad? The point is, in almost all of these cases, they don't have the money to pay for translation, and people are passionate users. For example, we were working, I'll think of the name. We were working with a company in California that is the largest maker of monsters and dinosaurs and things like that for Hollywood films. So if you saw a Hollywood film with a 50-foot dinosaur, this company is the only company in the world that makes those for Hollywood movie producers. And there are thousands of fans around the world that want to learn because they have online courses. So they have networks of people who translate the courses because they want their other fellow countrymen to be able to take the courses. And if they don't do it well, the company is not going to spend the money to quality control it. So it sort of just happens as it happens. I mean, there's no way to judge. Every different situation and every different industry is different. And as you know, all of these different things have different business models and different costs. And so that's why I tried to articulate the cost of the content, because if no one's making any money, they can't spend money to translate it. And either people are going to translate it because they want other people to be aware of it, or they're not going to be aware of it. And that's the nature of the marketplace.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ali, for your question. We have a question from Ms. Zena. Ms. Zena, please.
Hello. First, I'm very impressed, Danny, by your history and everything that you have been discussing with us. Actually, I have two questions. The first one is, we as small businesses, what advice can you give us so that people would come to us the same as the like companies come to you? I know that you have been in the business for so long. So I mean, we have what's needed to give good translation and to give the best services to clients, but sometimes we find it difficult to reach to like companies overseas, or to how do you think what's the best way to like advertise our services so that companies can come to us as small agencies, especially in.
Let me answer that question, Zaina.
Who's this?
I would suggest that the least expensive and most powerful way for you to get your brand known in the marketplace is to do exactly what we're doing, is to get people who are passionate about specific things and take something that is not currently being translated into Arabic and have someone translate a short video or something into Arabic, and then you show that to the company who's making it, or you do something, because that's really, if I had to take a dream, and this is, I didn't want to bring this up until I sort of heard the response from the audience. I think that,
just want to ask you a question about just want to say.
Who's the co-host or host? Please mute all that. What's happening?
I don't know. Someone was asking another question.
Sorry for that, sir. Sorry.
That's right. I mean, I would love to do something very large, very global, and very impactful with the Arabic community and global content, because in the Middle East, as you all know, there's unlimited amounts of money. And with the huge amount of global disconnect between Arabic speaking people and other religious situations, I think if we put together as a group a very powerful, audacious program to really elevate the knowledge and awareness of the Arabic global community and everything else, I think that we could have unlimited amounts of money available by people in the Middle East, because this is what they want to do. So, I mean, I saw videos of the New Year's Eve celebration in Abu Dhabi last night, with Kiss. Kiss was performing, just an amazing, probably millions and millions of dollars for the New Year's Eve celebration in Abu Dhabi. No, I think it was in Dubai. I think it was probably in Dubai, but
in Dubai.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so the answer is there really is no right answer, Zaina. It's a matter of your feeling is getting it started. And once people feel a momentum and an energy about doing things, you will start, gathering support. That's the only. And it's a very difficult answer, but there really is. It's organic, or it's karmic. I'm a very big believer in spirituality, so it's very spiritual and very karmic.
So you advise us to start with start with a project, and we reach to companies and tell them, if you do translate this content into these languages, you will get much better exposure, you get more audience, and so on.
Yeah, you could, but yeah, in other words, you just try.
Mm-hmm.
If you sit down on your chair and you never get up and try anything, you never can succeed, but you never fail. Mm-hmm. And when you take a step forward, you might say, oh, wait a minute, I should have gone left rather than right. But once you begin the journey and you start moving in a direction and people see what your interest is, you will be amazed at how that happens. And so and because the situation globally is so critically important with the differences between the Arabic speaking world and the English speaking world, and I don't need to go into the detail. There could be a huge opportunity. That's why when we made this connection, this connection that we made that I'm here is probably only 4 or 5 days old. And I had no idea, what it was going to be, but I knew that this is one of the most critical areas that is missing in the world, is proper Arabic translation from most anything in both directions. So if I can start this process to help move that in a good direction, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you, Ms. Zena. I believe Mr. Rashid tried to ask a question. Please, Mr. Rashid, go on.
Thank you very much for you all. Thank you. It's really those words are very appreciated, done by our lecturer. So the question is here: do you think these days, on the period or at the period of pandemic COVID-19, do you think the translation job, especially or specifically the simultaneous translation, do you think it has become more wider or much wider than before, or it has been specifically limit, or I don't know, maybe the global community now at the moment, they need more and more, they are in need for more translation to make a powerful communications and connection between the nations and the world? Do you think that we need it now more than before? Thank you very much.
Well, the answer is yes, of course. And, right now we are on Zoom, and Zoom by default just came out of nowhere and took over, and every one of us is on Zoom hours every day communicating with other people. And some of the communication that you people might have might be in Arabic. And so if you could have an interpreter, what you call a live translation or real-time translation on this, and then you have people who are speaking other languages, because in a situation like this, Arabic is probably the first language from most of the people on this phone call, and we're having this conversation in your second or third language. And so with Zoom calls and fewer and fewer people getting on an airplane and traveling and going to a conference, you have more digital virtual communication, and you need to have better communication. And it doesn't need to be live. It can be a recording of this and have it translated. But we at .sub are doing more and more work where large companies used to have a conference with 25,000 people over 3 days. And now they're not having the conference. They're videotaping it. And they want it to be available in other languages. So we're having more and more work doing things that would not have existed before COVID. So there are always going to be opportunities, but you have to be creative and and aggressive to figure that out.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Michael Smolens, once again. And I hope we can, cooperate in the near future
we'll have your lecture
the benefit of everybody.
Mr. Amr. Mr. Amr.